Exactly. I was just trying to be a good kid, man. I still am, but like, I've got to stop. Once you're in college, apparently it gets all like easy. It doesn't. Spoiler alert, there are multiple forks in the road there.
So it was dopamine for you.
It probably was. I joined IIT-Kanpur, where I studied for 4 years. After which I joined a job at a hedge fund in Mumbai.
Just as a game, you were top 150 in the country, and he was disappointed by that. Something he told me yesterday.
I had a snapshot of what I wanted to be in 5 years. I had a snapshot of what I wanted to be in 8 years. I've only had it for 6 months, and I can't imagine, living any other.
I was told that this is the solution to all your problems. You never could have a problem again, which is kind of the Indian dream.
Hey there, welcome to the Wide World View podcast, where we bring you relatable journeys of relatable people who fought relatable fights. I'm Anmol, and I spent over 11 years in behavioral research at Google. I now help build emotionally sustainable careers through personal and social insight. Today's episode is with Shouvik Sachdeva. His story is that of a good kid who achieved the Indian dream. After cracking the IIT JEE, the most competitive exam in the world at 16, Shouvik embarked on a long career in finance that took him from India to New York. In the first part of the episode, we delved deep into what shaped his early life, the importance of family, setting up good mental models, and that languishing feeling we've all felt. Good kids, you're all going to relate to this.
All right, welcome to the Wide World View podcast. We're shooting on a wide lens in beautiful rural Scotland. We just came out of the Cardo distillery where Johnny Walker started distilling his whiskeys. One of the whiskeys that goes with Johnny Walker is done here. And what better place to talk about burnout and life paths than where we're sitting right now. So we're actually just sitting by a highway, and we decided to do this. We're on a trip in Scotland. I'm here with my dear friend Shouvik, who's had an incredible journey and an incredible path. Um, and we met in New York. To introduce myself, I'm Anmol Didan. I'm originally from Shillong in India. I've worked at Google for about 11 years, and over the last year and a half or so, have started coaching and workplace culture consultancy called Wide World View, and have an upcoming book on Burnout Highway, called Burnout Highway. So since the book is about paths, and we're going to talk about your path a little bit, we'd love to hear a little bit about you and and your path so far.
Yeah. I'm very excited to do this podcast. By the way, I read Anmol's first draft of the book, and I must say I am super excited to see this project come to life. Um, I do want to kind of give a little bit of a background on where I come from, what I do, so that we can tie in the path that I took and the life choices that I took because of the path I was on, and we can tie all of that back to the book. So just a little brief introduction about me. I am from Chandigarh, and I went to a boarding school early on in my in when I was 10 or 9 years old, I think. And after that, I studied science, did like a standard engineering, take on what needs to be done in life. I studied computer science. I joined IIT Kanpur, where I studied for 4 years. After which I joined a job at a hedge fund in Mumbai. I've been working there for about 10 years up until last July, which is when I resigned, and I've been on a 1 year sabbatical since last July. So everyone's all caught up with my life now. But I want to obviously dive deeper into what led me down this path. And of course, I think it's been very insightful to read through Anmol's notes on burnout, because I think in general, you make a few choices in life based on where you've come from without realizing it. And I think last year has given me that time to kind of think back and reflect on where I am right now and what brought me here and where I want to go from here. So I'm excited to get into it.
For people who aren't from our part of the world, you talked a little bit about Chandigarh. Now, what were some of the cultural bases you grew up with, and you talked about IIT, which people who are in the technical space would probably know, and IITians run the world essentially. All the Googles, Microsofts, they're the smartest people in the world. Sundar Pichai, he's from an IIT. So just give us a little bit more about the Chandigarh. How did it frame you culturally, and tell the audience a little bit more about IIT itself. And yeah.
I'd love to talk briefly about Chandigarh, but I think that's like a rabbit hole I don't want to get into. Thoughts for that.
Chandigarh is in northwest India, in Punjab.
Chandigarh is in northwest India, in Punjab.
It's actually both in Punjab and Haryana.
Yeah. And it did kind of, let's see, and it did shape me quite a bit. And if I talk about it in all the ways that it shaped me, this would be like a 10-hour podcast. But yeah, in terms of how I think some like larger themes of like my life in Chandigarh have shaped how I think about life. I think it was always I don't come from like a very um, affluent family, so it was always about putting in the hard work and expecting um, yourself to kind of put yourself first and work hard to kind of earn the life that you want. And Chandigarh showed me what you could become if you worked hard. There's a lot of rich people in that town. And I think the pursuit for money and the pursuit for having bigger houses and showing that off is really prevalent in that culture. And I think that kind of, set me on this path of trying to be that person, trying to make money and make a living for myself. So early on, I kind of knew, okay, this is something that I will be doing. And I didn't really think there was any other way to be living. Like, I've met quite a few people in rural Scotland. Let me tell you, they're not running after money. They just have a brilliant life and they have a very
maybe the ancestors did.
they just have a very different take. If I stop the child on the road and ask them what do you want to do, I'm pretty sure they'll have a different answer from any kid in Chandigarh. So I think Punjab growing up in Punjab and Chandigarh and just generally in like a upper middle class Indian family, I think there are certain values that are taught to you early on. How the importance of education is always overstated. I think it really was the most important thing that I did as when I was growing up. That I focused a whole lot, and that's owing to my parents and my sisters. I think that we really did focus on education. Everything else was secondary, but education was just the top priority. And I think my father used to have this quote that if you work hard for 4 years, the next 40 years will look much easier. And I think I'm not so sure about the numbers, 4 and 40. Like I worked hard for about 10-ish years, I want to say at least. But it did sort out the next 20 so far. So I think that really struck with me that, I think it was like a twisted way of saying delayed gratification for him. But I think it was one of those realizations that, okay, there is something to be had with working hard, getting some results. Because when you're 10 years old, getting like a good, good marks in like an exam, it really doesn't mean much for you, does it? Like, it's just something that your parents are telling you to. And I think for me, it was important to trust them, trust the process, and get through it. And I must say, like Chandigarh in particular is very high on, focusing on academics. And I think that really shaped the early part of my life before I went to boarding school, which is where I think the focus changed from just being academically really well versed to kind of adding sports on top and like other facets of life. But the Chandigarh part, I think, kind of shaped the early stuff, which was, I'd say, education is like probably the most important thing I'd like take on as a kid, as well as like pursuing a hard earned life, and then pursuing some comforts and money, and that's when as a 10-year-old I knew that I wanted to.
So did that pursuit of education drive you to boarding school and then eventually to the IIT? Well,
yeah. So funnily, boarding school, I think I purely went because my dad loved the campus. He just wanted that for me. And at the time, I thought of when I was giving the entrance exam for the school, I was like, I don't want to go here. I want to stay at home. And my parents said, yeah, just give the exam and we'll see. Once the exam results came in, they said, you did well. Do you want to join the school, etc., etc.? And I think it was a tough decision. I just let parents choose for me,
Yes.
which I think was not really, wasn't a choice.
I mean, as a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Some of these things are forced on you. And then I got to school and I really enjoyed it. I think within a few months, I was up and I just loved the fact that we were playing so much sports, we were doing hobbies, and I was surrounded by like so many classmates all the time.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my time there. And it was not the pursuit of academics at all. In fact, it was a step down, I would say.
More holistic.
Academically, it was a more holistic approach to life and just being able to live independently. So I think academically, I was still, I think I was still a sharp kid.
Yeah.
But we could feel that I would be falling behind all the Chandigarh kids and the smartest kids in the country.
Yeah.
So my parents always made it a point to keep me up to date with like the best math and science teachers when I would come back for holidays in the summer.
So you were studying
So I was
in the summer.
I remember distinctly.
That's true for most Indian kids. Huh?
I know, right? We just put in tuitions. We just don't have summer break. People usually travel the world. You know, in summer we go to tuition. Learn about math and
So I ended
science.
up at IIT.
Yeah. I guess it was a fair trade. Now I can get to travel, but I think I distinctly remember there was one grade where I studied math and science. I finished the whole syllabus before joining.
Wow.
And that year I was just like, wait, I don't really need to be here in class. I've already done all.
How old were you then?
This was 7th grade. So
Wow.
Like,
7th grade.
yeah, I was like, wow, this is impressive. I just really don't need to study. Of course, I did the hard work in the summer, but this is like, again, like, you know, you can see bits and pieces of like how my parents think and how much focus they wanted on academics in my life.
Yeah.
And it was the right choice for me then. I wouldn't have it any other way. But, you know, like it was, luckily I was at a boarding school and I could choose to live a more holistic sort of life there. And as I think I took all kinds of sports by like, you know, I used to play like almost every sport that was available in that season, and then I would just, you know, relish the hours that I got to play sports, which I didn't get in Chandigarh. So boarding school was not an academic decision; it was more of like, you know, this could be cool kind of thing. Yeah. So and I was there till like grade 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about how the focus of your early life was on getting a quality education, and the focus of your parents on working hard for 4 years, and then in the next 40 being set up. I like to frame that from the perspective of early expectations you had probably of your life, whether it's because of the context of Chandigarh, your own family context, or just the societal paths that you were put on.
Yeah.
You talked about how those expectations shifted a little bit, or the focus of your early life shifted a little bit from education to a more holistic development, so to speak, in boarding school. So I'd love you to just maybe think a little bit about what some of those early expectations of your life might have been through, like looking at somebody else, looking at role models, or just the path that you thought you were on, and how they evolved as you grew, especially in boarding school, and also further on. So let's talk a little bit about your early life expectations.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, and I kind of have a very clear-cut answer to that. So I have 2 elder sisters. One's 5 years elder to me, and the other one's 8 years elder to me. And I feel like very early on, I used to put both of them on pedestals. So like, I had a snapshot of what I wanted to be in 5 years. I had a snapshot of what I wanted to be in 8 years. It was pretty clear to me that
always. Yeah, I relate to that because I grew up with cousins as well.
Yeah. So you've seen seen how like
5-year, 8-year, 10-year version of what to be and what maybe not to be as well.
With my sisters, I think it was mostly what to be. Plus, like maybe add a little bit of like sports and stuff into it, because those are like keenly interested in doing that. But academically and like general life like decisions, I would just look at them and be like, you know what, these guys know what's up.
They're cool,
I'm probably gonna just like keep following them.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't really follow them at all. I went to a boarding school. They both went to Singapore for like grade 11 and 12. I did not follow them, but I just had like role models there.
Yeah.
So if I needed like a reference point where I'm feeling lost and I want to, like you said, figure out my own expectations, that's what I look at. But honestly, like up until once that boarding school decision was made, so
Yeah.
grade 5 to grade 10 was like on autopilot. So I didn't really move to like change much about like what I expect from life. The only thing I knew that I have to stay academically on top of things, which values my parents instilled in me, and I think up until grade 10, I did pretty well. That's where the expectations kind of broke off because I didn't want to stay in a boarding school while preparing for like engineering colleges, or even if I were to if I plan to go to Singapore, I don't think boarding school was the best place to be. And I don't know who had that clarity, maybe my dad, but he knew that, the shows, we have to put him out after grade 10
Yeah.
because it's time to kind of drill down and figure out what's next. And no matter what it is, if you wanna get the best admissions at colleges, it's gonna take a bit. So he had that clarity early on, and he set that expectation with me as well that hey, you're gonna come back and compete with like people who've been eyeing these colleges, eyeing these entrance exams at colleges for a while, and you have to kind of like really amp up your game.
Yeah.
So I think it was clear after grade 10, the expectations were that I come back to Chandigarh and like start working hard in that direction.
And what were your expectations of that pass itself? So, for context, there is, Shouvik went to a very prestigious boarding school in the mountains in India called Lawrence Sanawar, if I'm not mistaken. Just doing that is associated with, prestige and a potential paths in life.
Yeah.
So, what were the expectations of the paths as you were starting to traverse that path? Were you always clear that maybe, like as you said, your dad probably had a big influence in whether the path that you were going on? Was the path more around was it clear to you that these are the expectations of my path that I go before I go to I hopefully go to an IIT and then from there go into big tech or finance or or to New York where you are now?
Yeah, so I think again it ties back to my sisters. My path up until grade 10 was maybe I just go to Singapore and do the same thing. Because
Okay.
by the time I reached grade 11, both my sisters were out of Singapore now and they were kind of transitioning to US colleges, and we were very happy with like the paths that they've taken.
Yeah.
So I was like, trying to follow them. Just so happened that the year that I was going to apply, some of the nicer colleges shut admissions,
Okay.
and I kept my other doors open with, even both my sisters, they also considered the top Indian colleges versus the Singapore path. So this was like a fork in the road, and I kind of chose to stay. Because early on, when I got back after grade 10 and we were still evaluating what I could do,
Yeah.
I started performing reasonably well at these like coaching centers in Chandigarh. And that's when, I think maybe my dad and like a little bit of like, decision from my end because I was really enjoying doing well.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
dopamine hit the detail. Like, oh, well, somebody asked me a question and I got a correct answer. As a kid, I was just loving, like, I used to love just solving problems and I was getting a kick out of doing that. So I kind of decided along with my dad, like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm going to prepare for coaching, prepare hard, make sure like I get through. And after that decision, the expectations were like, okay, you have to put your head down, work hard, and do well at these entrance exams. And that's when, once you're in college, apparently it gets all easy. It doesn't. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. But it makes it a lot more supportive.
Yeah.
So the expectations, yes, like to answer your question, like it was pretty clear based on what my parents had decided for me and what my sisters path led them to get to. I think these were like two very strong factors, at least in my childhood.
Well, what was your reward mechanism to convince yourself to just for context? I think let's first before we get into that, actually, let's talk a little bit about the IIT JEE exam because I think that's important in terms of just how competitive it is. I believe it's probably the most competitive 2,000 seats across IITs and 1 million kids give it every year.
I don't really know the numbers.
But this was something crazy like that.
This will change. I think it's like 10,000 kids now, and the numbers or number of people who take the exam, like
You're close to 1 million, right? I think. And there's a show on Netflix called Quota Factory, actually, which documents some of the trials, tribulations, and the journey of hundreds of thousands of kids who, as young as 13, go to a town in the middle of Rajasthan, which is built around coaching to get into IITs, which is kind of the Indian dream. Um, so, um, so what was the reward mechanism to essentially motivate yourself to even, because I was also studying science in the 11th and 12th grade when I was 16, and there was always that thought at the back of every Indian. I was pretty good at studies and academically doing well, so that thought was always there, but I never could convince myself to even take up that journey. I was also not very interested in science after a certain point in time. I went towards the social sciences bit. So yeah, like what was your reward mechanism at that young an age? Because it seems the way you're talking about even your 10-year-old self, it seems like you had a lot of like rational idea of what that reward might look like. Like how did you convince yourself to even like embark on this journey as a 10, 12, 14, 16-year-old?
Yeah,
or what did you need convincing?
Yeah, that's a good one. Of course, I'm also like retroactively like fitting logic on what my decisions were.
Yeah.
But as far as I remember, I think I just enjoyed being good at stuff. I was competitive. So if I found a sport, a game, an exam, for instance, that I could be good at, I just want to keep doing that. So maybe like, I don't know, I've been even through that JE coaching stuff, like I think when I started doing well is when I started enjoying it. Before that, it was maybe a little bit more pressure. And
so it was dopamine for you.
I probably was dopamine. Didn't know what that meant back then, but it was definitely some of that. And I think again, it was also like when I did well, I was also really rewarded by my parents and my sisters with validation, right? So I think I was that part also led to kind of
and society, I'm sure, broader society.
Yeah, for sure. I think I just want to be a good kid, and being a good kid meant being good at things. And I just like I'm gonna try very hard to be a good kid.
Yeah, nice. So, so you talked about certain expectations that you had with your path, and just as a game, you cracked, you were top 150 in the country, and he was disappointed by that. Something he told me yesterday. I was just like, "That's insane! I didn't know how smart you were." But you talked about all the expectations that you had of a certain path, and at different stages of life, I'm sure that evolved. So now that you also tell the audience a little bit about what you've been up to in the last since your professional life started. I know you studied software engineering, right?
Computer science.
Computer science, yeah. So in terms of those expectations that you talked about, and the expectation that what you saw yourself as, whether at a 16-year-old, 18, 21-year-old Shouvik, when you look at those thoughts or ideas that you had of that version of yourself at of course 30, have those expectations been fulfilled, unfulfilled? Is there anything you would have liked to do differently or think about differently? Yeah,
that's a loaded question.
It is. You can take your time.
Yeah, but once I got to college, I think for the first time I was on my own. I feel like that was when
Not even loaded school.
I was on my own, but like the big decisions were still my parents and my sisters helping me out.
Yeah.
In college, it felt like you do whatever you feel like, on like figure out your path now. So I feel like that's when I started thinking for myself a little bit more strongly. It was scary at first, but slowly, when you realize what you like and what you dislike, I think that's where like there are multiple forks in the road there. Like some decisions will take you down just like different paths. And what I was willing to kind of do then is put myself through many different like courses or like many different paths and visualize what this would be like. So I did a couple of internships to figure out what might be nice. I quickly realized research, like if I were to do a PhD, would that be fun? I knew the answer to that.
Yeah, we have some common friends from around your
Yeah, PG is
your colleagues that have gone that way, right?
PG is a common exit from college. I knew I didn't want to do that. I think I knew that I was either gonna come to the US. That was definitely on the cards for me because both my sisters were here. So I did apply for
Seems like
masters.
family is driven you a lot.
Family has, because I think, like I said, every like 5 years from now, what my life could look like if I chose their path, it looked pretty good. So, and then 8 years from now, it looked even better. So I think I was like, okay, I have a template. Why not just use it? And like, even though I was making my own decisions, I was always drawn to like,
And what was checkpoints like monetary in your head or
No.
standard of life related or like what were those?
No, I think they gave me the exposure towards how like the US might have some of the best colleges out there, and some of the
Pursuit of education still.
pursuit of maybe education,
Learning.
but just generally learning and then quality of jobs as well. So I thought if this is where the best stuff is happening, I think I did want to migrate towards that. But yeah, so I think like even through college, I had this desire to come to the US because both my sisters had done it and they were had good working jobs and they were doing pretty well for themselves. So I thought maybe that's like the best place to be, especially for education, even for jobs. So I did apply for a master's, and I got through at CMU for like a 2-year program. But on the other hand, I also did get a job out of the campus placements, which was for a hedge fund in Mumbai. And while I was weighing these two options, I think that was the first decision I made, which was a big decision, and it was almost purely mine.
So, sorry to interrupt, but talk a little bit about as you think about your journey from like electing to choose say computer science, which might have been a passion point, or I don't know how you chose that and how you ended up towards the hedge fund finance, which is essentially, I mean, there are obviously overlaps in technology as in everything we do. But what was that journey and what were some of the incentives that led you to first computer science and then then World Quant?
Yeah, so I think for the first 3 years of college, I was just studying computer science, and I think my interest was the highest in anything related to maths even within computer science. But I had no exposure to finance. I had no like inclination to even join a finance fund. But once placements started happening, and I kind of like read about like what kind of jobs are out there, like so there was software engineering, or there were like investment banks or hedge funds. These were like sort of the top exits from college for me, and I think I don't. I mean, I don't remember who this was, but somebody told me like if you really are into math, maybe like the quant world is like better suited to you because even though your skills are a cross of a little bit of finance knowledge plus computer science plus math, and it's not just like heavy math, you'd probably get the kind of fix of like algorithmic trading or like mathematical equations in that space. It was a very ill-informed decision to kind of go down this path.
So it was random.
It was not random, but it wasn't like completely informed, right? Like,
I mean, you can't ever be fully informed.
I know, but it's like the nuances were like completely missing from that. So I just chose it because I'd heard of the firm and people said, it's a nice place to come work at. And I got into the finance world through that firm. And I think once I had to decide between doing a master's and a job, I think I was kind of done studying. I was like, what is the point of all this? Like, why did I study so much like random crap if I was not going to apply? When am I going to apply all of these things? So I was a little sick of like there being less application and just like constantly just studying and giving exams. So I really, really just wanted to get into the industry and get my hands on like implementing everything that we learned. So I decided to join the hedge fund, which I did in 2015. I've had a great time there. I did 3 years of research work in India, and then I moved to New York, which was always kind of sort of in the back of my head. It was always the
You always wanted to get to New York.
I did. And I'm not like it's funny. Not a lot of my friends know this. That I remember when I got this job. I was like, oh, I'm working for a hedge fund now, and it should be exciting. And I posted on my Facebook wall saying, or I don't know if I did or one of my friends did it. Someone posted on my wall saying hashtag Wolf of Wall Street. And the real picture was far from what Wolf of Wall Street was. It's like a tech company. It's really not like an investment bank or like a busy hedge fund. And I really liked it, to be honest. And I moved to New York for some form of upward mobility and just to get exposure to like living in a different country. Very good decision. That's where I met Amol back in like 2018.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been working in this industry. I think now I have reasonable experience.
Yeah.
The expectations from the get-go were exactly this, that if I stayed here long enough, I go from research to becoming a trader, and then I can like sort of, once I can own the whole stack, I can be a trader on my own. Which means I can open up my own shop or like, be independent in terms of like the work that I can do. So that path was pretty well laid out. And because I stayed at the same firm, I think it was easy for me to kind of see that through. But late 2023, I think it was, the firm had just had a bad year. And I think something in me switched. I think I realized like I need something new more. Like I need a challenge, or like I need more, I don't know, I need something that makes me a little bit more excited about work than what I was feeling. So I went through a lot of emotions for like 5 or 6 months about like the kind of stuff that I want to do and whether like what I was doing right now was in line with my future expectations. And this is like the peak level of me asserting control over my own future path. Before that, like I said, so many things were laid down for you. Even out of college, they just happened, right? Like this job that I got was...
This is what a good kid does.
Exactly. I was just trying to be a good kid, man. I still am, but like I've got to stop.
You're getting a little...
I'm becoming a bad boy now. Yes.
Getting a little adventurous.
But that's when it stopped for me. Like, okay, I can now take a step back and see what's happening. That's when I started like learning about these words like burnout. And, what was that term that or who called it? I think Adam Grant to it. Languishing.
Yeah.
But languishing was I really like related to that. It was like a smell to me. Like, yes, I feel it. Like this is how I feel sometimes.
And was that the first time you felt languishing?
No. I've felt that like every year. I felt that.
And was it through your career, or did you feel that even during college and some
just through my career, and almost every year, once like a quarter, I would be like, what am I like really doing? Like what is all this all about? So I think that's when I realized, okay, like it's fine to go through these emotions, but if that emotion is sticky, if it's gonna be like a consistent feeling that I have with respect to my work, then that's a problem. Okay. And I saw that being a problem in 2024. That's when I decided I'm going to leave. I quit in September 2024, and now it's like we're in making 2025, and I haven't worked for like about 6 months now, I want to say.
That's great, right?
But it's a great life. For those of you who don't know, Anmol had kind of a lot of autonomy over his time.
Yeah.
I've only had it for 6 months, and I can't imagine living any other way. So it's been really refreshing to have these 6 months to think about things and change how expectations should be going forward.
Before we get into your last the discovery you've had in the last few months, we spoke quite a bit to someone who's had you spoke how you kind of had a path, so to speak, 5-year and 8-year paths to look at, and how it seemed like you had a lot of conscious decisions about your path, like pursuit to education, holistic education, and competing with like the best and smartest people. But then you went through all that for 21, 22 years of your life, and then your journey to finance and that hedge fund was it seemed pretty random in terms of like you yourself said that you didn't think about that. So someone who was consciously thinking about their path also seemed to have at the end like an unconscious end to not end but segue, so to speak. And you also spoke about how in college there was like in India especially, we told a lot about how once you get into a college, particular an IIT or IIM, like I had got into an IIM, and I was told like this is the solution to all your problems. You never got have a problem again. But you spoke a little bit about some of those expectations you had, whether at college, even like when you started your career. So were there some expectation versus reality, like shocks or mismatches that you discovered? So if you think back to whether it was your college or even your career, um, what were some of the things that you expected, and now that you've lived through, or a lot, what were some of the reality mismatches, so to speak, and how can you potentially have prepared yourself better mentally to not feel as potentially as burnt out or even as languished? Uh, at like 30, or more or less.
Yeah. So I think through college there were definitely a few mismatches, but I wouldn't call them. They didn't really affect anyone because you're in like a shared reality.
Yeah.
Which is like you're going through that same exact thing with.
Just so say you had more community to support you like that.
I had more community.
And
There was
authenticity.
yeah. I mean, there was more like common wisdom that would give you the confidence that okay, there are like so many other people making the exact same choice as me. So this must be like it must have some sort of like validation to it, and I would feel more confident about those choices.
Okay.
So even if there were a mismatch as to like okay,
They were more rubber stamped. That path was more rubber stamped, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. So like even like you said, the job decision was not mine, but I knew the like the campus said in like more ways than one that these are the best jobs on the campus. So I kind of knew like even if I just like close my eyes and chose one of those, like the big consulting firms, the big tech firms, the big hedge funds, the big investment banks, you all considered to be excellent jobs. Even if you weren't tailored to me, I would have I would have been okay with that. So I think another time, like while making own decisions, if somebody else can give you like a good review of the decision, like there's crowd wisdom, there's validation, it was easy. The mismatch really started happening when at work, everybody started going in like many different directions. Like it was a cohort of 10, I think, that joined together at my firm. Literally everything else, right? Even if it's at the same firm or even if it's like some other like place, everyone's made different choices. And when I started seeing those paths diverge, even though we're all roughly like in working jobs and like some of us aren't actually, but it's pretty similar. But within that context, given that now you're in the industry, you have some expertise here, everyone made like many different micro decisions, and you were on your own. You get to choose, you do whatever you want. The fear of not like doing just like whatever I wanted and not just like following what
If you enjoyed that, share this with another good kid who might relate and find this helpful. Give us a like and don't forget to subscribe, it really helps the channel. Part 2 next week goes deeper into the self-discovery Shouvik had through his sabbatical to set up for his next stint in the corporate world as a trader at Tower Research. I also work with people one-on-one, so if you're interested, please reach out through wideworldview.com. Thank you for watching.